Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Guys, welcome back to r/EntitledPeople, where people truly believe that they're the center of the universe and nobody matters. And in today's episode, it's all about elderly Karens getting taught lessons. That's right, guys. People learn that just because you're a certain age doesn't mean you can do what you want. And OP teaches an HOA Karen a lesson he won't forget. Guys, I hope you enjoy the stories. Don't shake your heads too hard. And as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. So I was at Kroger yesterday buying groceries. There were only 2 checkout lanes open, and it was around 5 p.m.-ish, so the afternoon rush was in full swing. Both lines were about 8 to 10 people long. I was in line for one checkout lane, and some mid-30s guy was in the checkout lane next to me. He was the last one in his line, and I was the second to last in my line. That's when a woman got in line behind him who looked to be about 70 years old. And you know sometimes when you meet someone that you just get a sense that they're kind of an a-hole? Yeah, she was one of those types. The woman pushes her cart up behind him and then makes a few comments that we all ignored about not having enough open registers and how we'll be here all day at this rate. She just continually made huffing noises. Some time passes and we're all shuffling forward as the line moves up. The guy who's in front of the older woman is now next in line for his lane once the person in front of him finishes, and that's when she starts her BS. I can hear the woman say to the man, "Excuse me, I'm in a big hurry. Would it be alright if I just went in front of you?" The woman, while she was saying this, was moving her cart up alongside his, and she grabbed the front of his cart and began to push his cart out of the way so she could get in front of him. The guy looks at her without saying anything and then grabs the handle of his cart so she can't push it any further to the side. He then takes a step forward so the front half of his cart is now between the 2 drink coolers on either side of the lane, so her cart can't fit alongside his. He then goes back to looking straight ahead without saying a word, and the woman began to boom her. She started loudly demanding that he let her go in front of him because she has way more stuff and she has to get home. She also starts complaining that he's disrespectful and tells him it's ladies first, but please, go right ahead. She just kept saying stuff like that, so on and so on. She had the attitude of a woman who had rarely, if ever, been told no in her life, and she was handling it about as well as you'd expect. The guy once again did not respond. Instead, he reaches into his pocket, pulls out his AirPod case, and then put both of his AirPods into his ears. He then took out his phone and very slowly and deliberately slid the volume bar on his screen to maximum. He then went back to staring straight ahead without saying a word. The woman just bitched at him for another minute or 2 until she finally noticed that he couldn't hear her, and then she went back to snarkily making comments behind his back while the guy's stuff was being rung up. The guy paid for his stuff and he left without ever glancing at her, and she was absolutely seething the entire time. That guy was my hero. He never even tried to argue with her. He just shut her down and went about his day. Guys, not all heroes wear capes, right? Some wear AirPods. And seriously, this is exactly how you deal with entitled Karens, guys. Like, you never ever want to upset a Karen by saying anything or doing anything to them, as it'll probably just escalate the situation so fast, as you probably know by now. Just stay quiet, ignore them, and move on. And really, the excuse of "I have more stuff than you and I have to be somewhere" is not a reason that you should ever want to go in front of someone. Like, wait in line patiently and shut up, Karen. We all got somewhere to go. It's not all about you. So there was this one Karen boomer that works in our department. She's the secretary, so she comes in at 7 o'clock in the morning and everybody else comes in at 7:30. The other day, she was late. It was a rare occasion. And as soon as she came in, she comes straight to my desk and she takes one of my K-cups, a coffee or teapot for those unfamiliar, used in a Keurig machine. She then proceeded to try to use it at my Keurig on my desk. Of course, I asked her what she was doing. She said because it's out, she figured it's for anyone. I said, no, the things I bring in and pay for and leave at my desk are not for everyone. I then asked her how long she's been taking my K-cups. Her response was, well, not every day. I don't take one every day. I obviously told her my things at my desk are off limits. I then told some coworkers what happened, and they all said that they would come in and get the feeling that somebody had been rifling through their things. So we decided that someone would come in early and they would sit in the conference room looking over our desks and see what's going on before we came in. Well, we discovered that Karen would come in and she would take things from people's desks. Every morning, she would make coffee from my machine, make an oatmeal packet from a box that someone else leaves at their desk, used honey from somebody else's desk, and in the meantime, she'll go desk to desk and go through people's things. She takes post-its from one person, a pen from another, she even took one of someone's daily vitamins. Then she ate and drank her coffee and she reorganized her desk with other people's things before 7:30 when everyone else gets in. We were obviously shocked, angry, and felt violated. Like, how long was this going on for? So we went to our boss and we had a meeting to discuss what we knew was going on. The lady saw absolutely no fault in what she did. She kept arguing that if it's out, then anyone can use it. Like, why leave it out if you don't want people to touch it? Everyone said they felt violated and they didn't think they had to lock up post-its at the end of the night. So Karen just shrugged it off as she saw zero problem with what she did. The boss told her to knock it off, but we don't trust that she won't do it again. Now everyone locks up everything in their file cabinet at the end of the day. We all thought about it and we all thought we were crazy. Like, I would swear I had more K-cups in my box, or I knew I brought enough snacks for the week that would never last, or I swear I had 2 blue pens. After that, we realized all the other liberties she takes with people's things, like using hand lotion without asking, taking candy off someone's desk, using someone's creamer in the fridge, and we kept telling her enough is enough, but she really thinks that she has a right to these things. The entitlement is unreal. I have never in my life worked with someone that behaves this way. Also, I work for the government, so people don't get fired on the spot. Anytime someone does get fired, it's a huge ordeal with multiple write-ups and multiple disciplinary meetings. We also have a union. This one incident certainly isn't enough to get fired, but if it keeps occurring and can be proven, that's a different story. Holy moly, guys, like, stealing from people is one thing, but the fact that she wouldn't stop stealing after being called out on it is, like OP said, the most entitled thing ever, isn't it? And guys, I only wish somebody got some petty revenge on her and like took her car keys or something and used her car. Wouldn't that have been something? Oh, but Karen, you left your purse out on your desk, which means it's for everyone, right? And we just happened to see your car keys in there. So we thought we'd take your car and like park it 10 blocks away. Some people, I tell you. Okay, so my elderly father-in-law not only lost all his family's money, but he also went deep into debt in under 3 months. The guy first fell for a weird investment scheme. He invested like 500 euros on some website that claimed to be able to multiply his investment in a few weeks. After watching some fake numbers on a fake website rise to astronomical heights, he decided to invest 50,000 euros and then another 50,000 euros into it. Well, when his investment had skyrocketed to a 7-figure number, he tried to withdraw it, but he found himself unable to do so. The investment company then contacted him and told him that they would gladly send him his money. But since it's an international transfer, he needs to put forward 5,000 euros to cover transfer fees and taxes, which he gladly did. A week after, they emailed him again and tried to tell him that his 5,000 euros did not cover the whole fee, and they need more money. Now, instead of sending more money, he decides to put his foot down, and he demanded they send his money immediately. And this is where it gets worse. They called him back, telling him that all they needed were his bank account details. So the guy literally gave him his card numbers, his online login, and even gave them his 2-factor authentication code several times. Instead of giving him his millions, he got his savings and bank account drained into the deep, deep red. Literally as down will go. But since my father-in-law is the kind of old guy that likes to brag about how much credit he has available, this meant he's down almost 50,000 euros in the negative. When he found himself unable to pay for anything and his bank was desperately calling him, he went to the bank manager, who almost had a heart attack. Father-in-law ends up going to the police to file a report, closed his account, and got a new credit for the overdraft and got a new non-compromised account. He then emailed the scammers to demand his millions and threatened to sue them. 2 weeks later, some random guy calls him out of the blue and claimed to be an international fraud investigator and offered to pursue his scammers and get his millions for him. But all he needed for that work was a fee of 3,000 euros, which my father-in-law gladly paid. The guy then emailed him demanding more money since the job unexpectedly turned out harder than anticipated. My father-in-law refused and demanded the investigator do the job he was already hired for. So a week goes by and said investigator then contacts father-in-law and said he'd managed to secure his millions. All he needed was his bank details. So my father-in-law literally again gave away his card numbers, his online login, his two-factor authentication codes to his new account to some random guy on the phone who was barely able to speak the language for the second time. And again, his bank account gets drained to like minus 5,000 euros. So my father-in-law literally went from having about 320,000 euros in his retirement fund to being in almost 50,000 euros in debt in about 3 months. So where are we now? The only reason he hasn't entered literal bankruptcy yet is because his wife has her finances completely separate from him, and now she has to fund their entire life, while his monthly pension payments get almost completely garnished to pay his debt. We also spoke to a lawyer, and they told us that he's completely on the hook for all the lost money and the accrued debt because there's no judge in this nation that would not consider him at the very least grossly negligent for what he did. And you know what? Since he's got the entitled mentality of never being wrong, he still believes his millions exist. My freaking goodness, guys, like reading this post, I don't know whether to be sad for this man or say he deserves it. And the thing is, a lot of people fall for these types of scams, guys, but twice, that's a little bit ridiculous there. And the thing is, you know for sure he probably had family members or his wife going, "Ron, you need to stop, it's a trap." Like that man needs to be put under some kind of supervision and not be allowed to have access to any banking information. Like the dude should be getting an allowance in cash like a child since he's clearly not responsible enough to have a bank account. With that said, I do offer a service like that, guys, where I manage your money and guarantee you a return of 1,000%, so shoot me an email. I only charge $10,000 up front and require full access to your banking information. Okay, but jokes aside, guys, it is sad that those scumbag scammers often target older people. Like, I freaking hate people who prey on others like that. Okay, so I work at an elementary school. I wasn't there, but as with all things, news spreads fast. This happened like a week or so ago. Apparently, a student was throwing a tantrum in class, and the kid threw a ukulele on the ground, and when the teacher told him he'd better pick it up or else, the kid said, "Or else what?" and then stomped his foot right through it. Now obviously this is not acceptable behavior and grounds for some kind of serious punishment. However, instead of calling the administrators, the school resource officer, or the principal, or any other type of backup to help resolve the situation, this entitled ass boomer just cocks back and full on hits this 8-year-old child in the face. Of course, the other students freak out and they run out of the class. Meanwhile, the kid's on the ground, blood coming from his nose. The teacher is still standing over him when the school resource officer arrives, and the guy's yelling at the student saying, "Not so tough now, are you?" So the parents are informed, and the father arrives very soon after, and the guy's livid. He's looking for this teacher himself, and he's ready to settle it himself. He luckily never does, but he's dead set on pressing charges. The teacher was arrested at home later that evening. The guy should have been forced to retire a while ago. He's nasty to students, he gets angry with autistic kids for not responding to him, and he'll do other wild things. I remember sitting in his class and hearing him spout some unhinged stuff at his students about TikTok, China, and the conspiracy theories. Just crazy stuff. The guy refused to take his retirement last year and he wanted to come back. Now he's thrown it all away, and the guy's ruined his life as a 60-plus-year-old man, who's now facing multiple violent charges, fired from his job, and will likely have his pension taken away as part of the settlement with the family. Some teachers be frickin' crazy, I tell you. And honestly, I'm not surprised that after all those years of teaching that he finally lost it on the students and he had no more Fs to give. With that said though, of course, there's never ever a valid excuse to hit anyone, let alone an 8-year-old student. The guy messed up big time. And honestly, if I were in that boy's father's shoes, holy moly, ain't nothing saving that teacher from an ass whooping. Hashtag I'm very badass. But seriously, I'm telling you guys, some parents would 100% be like, I'm going to jail. You hit my son, now I have to hit you, and now I'm going to jail. And I'm okay with that. That is absolutely wild though. I am still speechless that the dude just punched a frickin' minor like that. This was a while ago. I was living in a condo with my girlfriend and brother in college. The condos were about 2 miles from a major university and almost exclusively filled with college students. Well, this boomer Karen decided to buy his retirement home here, a 3-story condo of course, and expected everyone to fall in line with his vision of a dream community. Guest parking was rare and he would frequently get guest cars towed because he could. Of course, he would then park his personal non-visitor Lexus in guest parking whenever he felt like it. If a car bumper was overhanging the curb from a driveway by an inch, he would get it towed. He never towed our cars, but he singled me out because I like working on cars, and he didn't like me doing this in my own garage, not making a lot of noise. So he would hit us with fines for leaving the trash cans out too long, having oil spots in the driveway, noise complaints, including times we were out of town, etc. My landlord ended up getting on the HOA board to get him to stop harassing his tenants and fining them for BS. We had to take pictures on trash day for a month in order to show that he was full of crap. We also walked the neighborhood, taking pictures of oil spots everywhere to show that he was singling us out. So here's how he got arrested. I look out my bedroom window one day and see the guy in his high school track uniform. It was bright yellow, short shorts, the whole thing. He was a frail boomer, so little pale chicken legs with white crew socks and New Balances were holding him up. We lived on a roundabout type of dead end with a grassy island in the middle. He's doing lunges and other track exercise looking things in the roundabout. This goes on for about half an hour, and then he goes back to his garage and gets a javelin. He then starts doing the same things again, including throwing the spear into the grassy area so it sticks. Now, this was way before people knew police shoot people for things like this, so I called a non-emergency number and told them there was some guy with a spear on my street brandishing a spear and throwing it around. I told them he looks like he's having a mental episode or something, and honestly, there was a very good chance that this was all true. The guy had never done anything like this before, and I sure as hell didn't feel safe going outside with this historically aggressive and spiteful man awkwardly chucking a spear around. This was back when police response times were a thing. So the cops show up and park in the street about 20 feet from the guy who's still tossing the spear around. The guy doesn't understand that they're there for him at first, and he just kind of stands there so they can drive past. The cops start by just asking him to put the spear down and to come have a chat. There's no guns or tasers or anything like that. Well, the guy refuses and tells them to go ahead as he's not in their way. The cops ask him again and Boomer gets it. He refuses and he starts babbling how he's not doing anything wrong, how this is his neighborhood, etc. I'm in my window with my roommates and I'm glued to the scene. I can see another 4 to 5 neighbors doing the same. So the cops tell him to put it down once again, and the guy refuses, the same gibberish. Finally, he yells something like, "I'm not putting it down, but I will put it away." The cops tell him no, just to drop it. The guy tells the cops that he's going to put it away. He then huffs off into his garage to put the spear away, and he returns to the cops. Now onto a tirade about his freedoms and how he pays their salaries and refuses to be harassed in his own yard. The guy's super angry, yelling, waving his arms, the whole nine. The cops tell him to sit down on the curb and to calm down. The guy refuses, so now the cops grab him and put him in handcuffs and sit his ass down. I'm glad the cops didn't do anything hardcore to the poor guy. General embarrassment is great, but I'm glad he didn't get hurt. They end up putting him in the back of the car, still in handcuffs, and leaving. They closed his garage and whatnot before leaving. Boomer stopped yelling by this point, but he was ranting about stuff. He was back 3 days later, maybe sooner, so I don't know if they took him to jail or just the hospital for an evaluation. His hostility towards the neighborhood got way worse after that. See, and there's the biggest issue with these people. Like, the entitled old guy probably never learned from his consequences because he was convinced he was doing nothing wrong. And that's why he got even more angry. But I guess he wasn't really doing anything wrong, right? But just openly tossing an 8-foot-long sharp spear in public, it's definitely a no-no. My newish friend / coworker had a heart attack and he died at work the other day. We all heard a crash coming from his cubicle. A lady screamed, and when I got there, he was laying face down, barely breathing, and all blue. A couple of us rolled him over, stretched him out, and checked his vitals. I was an EMT in another life. He had no heartbeats and was only reflexive breathing. We then began CPR. Another lady called 911 and then ran down to the main level to direct the first responders. Two of us worked on him for like 10 to 15 minutes before paramedics arrived, and it was horrible. The sounds he made, the ribs cracking, the blank stare, everything was bad. As soon as they wheeled him out of the building, they pronounced him dead somewhere else. My boomer boss, Karen, goes, "Okay, that's enough excitement, everyone, so let's get back at it. We've got work to do." With that, he clapped his hands once and then scurried back to his office. I didn't feel like doing any more sales calls for a minute, so I just sat on the office couch for a while. After 5 minutes or so, he noticed I wasn't making my calls and he comes out to confront me. He says to me, "Hey, perk up. There's no point in wallowing, is there? So get back to work." One single clap. I respond, "No, man, he was my friend, and that was troubling. I'm gonna need a while. I might go home for the rest of the day." That's when boss says, "For what? You're not tired, are you? You only had to do CPR for what, like barely 5 minutes?" At that, I just grabbed my keys and left, like F that guy. When I got back to work the next day, he goes, "I hope you aren't planning on acting out again today. I was this close to letting you go yesterday. F him." So yeah, the post ends right there, guys, but like, I think OP totally did the right thing by walking out after what their boss said. Like, what an insensitive frickin' a-hole comment, right? Like, someone just died and the guy's concerned about people making more sales calls. Probably to meet quota to line his pockets, right? Yeah, he's dead. Anyways, get back to work. Again, some people, I tell you. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our / entitled people. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's in our /pro revenge episode where OP is a lawyer and he destroys a sleazy landlord. Guys, go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.